In her poem Sonnet-Ballad, Gwendolyn Brooks introduces a form invented by her which combines the form of the sonnet with that of the traditional ballad. As a sonnet, the poem has a traditional meter and rhyme structure throughout its 14 lines, three groups of 4 lines, and one final couplet. The traditional meter of sonnets is iambic pentameter. This means that the lines of the poem are arranged with regard to two-syllable sections whose first syllable is unstressed and whose second syllable is stressed. Each of these sections is an iamb, and when they are linked together in a line, they produce a rhythmic or musical effect that is almost song-like. In this poem, there are 3 sets of 4 lines that follow an A-B-A-B pattern. This means that in each set of 4 lines, the ends of the first and third lines rhyme, and the ends of the second and fourth lines rhyme as well. Let's see the summary of the poem. The poem Sonnet-Ballad begins with an address to the speaker's mother. The title of the poem gives us very little information about the poem's subject. The address to a parent offers the idea that the speaker might be a child, or at the very least is someone's son or daughter. This is immediately complicated though by the addition of a question which, although childlike in its simplicity, one would expect because of its seriousness to come from an adult. This seriousness is increased as well by the repetition of the word mother, which gives the line a sense of pleading and not simply asking. This first line is an excellent example of how contrasting ideas or implications can be used to offer complexity in a poem and not necessarily confusion. In this case, there is the contrast of the serious pleading question about happiness with the implied idea of a child. Though this seems contradictory as one moves through the poem and finds it to be about a woman who has lost her lover to war, the subject of childhood could be seen to strengthen the poem in several ways. First, it heightens the sense of loss and death by subtly offering its opposite, youth or childhood. Second, one might find the idea of childhood bringing in the feeling of vulnerability, which the speaker clearly feels later in the poem. In the second line, the vagueness of the situation is removed as the speaker offers specific information about the situation. Her lover has been taken off to war. Notice how this line establishes a particular tone with its use of carefully chosen language. The lover did not leave for or go to, but he was taken by an anonymous they. This adds a sense of tragedy to the poem as it implies that the lovers had no real control in the matter. Also, it is not just the lover that departs, but the lover's tallness. This change, however slight, could be seen to add human detail to our still general image of the lover. The noun provides the reader with something to begin picturing, but also implies the idea of strength. This again could be seen to add force to the already tragic experience of his being taken by establishing that he was strong, not small and weak, and yet he could not stop them from taking him. In lines 3 and 4, the poem becomes more involved regarding both form and content. As to form, these lines are the ending of the first of the 3 4-line sections of the sonnet. Notice how the end rhymes A-B, A-B fit together here and solidify this as section of the formal structure. Line 3 ends with guess, which of course rhymes with line 1's happiness, and line 4 ending with the word for completes the rhyme with line 2's war. This rhyme scheme will now begin again with line 5. Regarding its subject, the poem now shifts focus from the departed lover to the one left behind. She is left lamenting, but also wondering what good her heart might be if left empty. While this is a powerful question for the speaker to ask and it expresses a good amount of longing and distress, Brooks goes further to invent a word combination that sharpens the effect even more. With the choice of referring to the heart as a heart cup, she not only accentuates the possibility of the heart being empty, but making it easier for a reader to picture, but also offers the heart as a simple, clear object that one might use every day and, more importantly, might not be able to use from this point forward. Line 5 is quite simple and direct, but it offers the idea that the parting is somehow permanent, which one might not necessarily think to be the case. In other words, this simple line could be seen to erase any of the expected hope in such a situation. The poem then carries on in an attempt to explain and justify this lack of hope. In lines 6 to 8, what could be seen as the explanation of why it is the speaker of the poem is so sure for a lover will not return from the war. It is still left fairly vague in this section, which completes the second of the 3 4-line sections, but it is worthy of notice to see what Brooks has done by choosing several words in particular. First, the choice of grandly as an adverb modifying the man's walk in line 7. This establishes the possibility of a certain honor or code that the man might have regarding his action, that he would walk grandly off to war, even in a situation where he is being taken. There could be seen to imply a certain resignation on his part to do his duty. Second, Brooks's choice at the end of line 8 to liken the man's possible death to a kind of infidelity. With this one word, untrue, Brooks introduces the compelling and unexpected simile of death being another woman to whom the speaker's lover is drawn. In line 9 to 10, Brooks decides to repeat the phrase what claims the potential death to be both an infidelity and a result of destiny. The phrase itself is powerful and sounds strong, both reason enough for the repetition. The repetition also emphasizes this potentially neglected word have. Such a simple ordinary verb, it is possible that stated once, it might not be more than a passive reference to future action in the story. Stated twice, though, it makes stronger this idea that the lover who has gone to war is not in control of his own destiny. He has to be untrue, or in the terms of the original situation, he has to die. The addition of the word coquettish in line 10 then extends the simile of death as another woman and increases the tragedy of such betrayal by claiming that she, death in the end, does not even really have an interest in this particular man. Thus, his being tempted is nothing but a deception. In the next several lines, this string of adjectives is extended in a continued effort to offer a unique and powerful image of how the speaker's lover's imminent death appears to her. It is also an attempt to explain why her lover might not be able to resist. It is the strange possessive arms and beauty of a sort that cause the man to give in. This whole phenomenon is still left a bit vague, but the implication is that there is something about death, its confident, beautiful nature, that makes a hard man hesitate and long for it. This beauty, possibly not the traditional beauty one might think of, as Brooks adds the parenthetical of a sort after it, it still has great power. How exactly it might cause a man to be drawn to it is left to the reader. If one recalls the use of certain words earlier in the poem, grandly for instance, one might see this seduction as the lover's attraction to pride or honor. Often people confront great odds out, sheer bravery and dedication. But Brooks leaves it more mysterious than this with the use of this word beauty. The idea that there is something beautiful and possessive about death that would draw one to it adds great weight and complexity to the poem as it approaches its end. In the final couplet, there is the climax of the action and then the return to the question that began the poem. The speaker of the poem describes her lover finally giving in to death by stating the yes. Again, the ambiguity or lack of certainty is shown with the use of the word stammer. As this implies the hesitation, it could also be seen as nervousness or fear at the point of death. Nonetheless, the speaker imagines her hard man finally answering the call of the other woman, who in this case is meant to be death. Then there is a final act of closure when the poem repeats as part of its couplet the first line of the poem. This could be seen to affect the poem in several ways. First, regarding the formal elements of the poem, it closes it up neatly and transforms the poem into almost a circle that could start again its song. The last line also, though, reintroduces the vulnerable pleading again, possibly childlike, given the address to the mother and sadness of the lover being in such state. Finally, it leaves the reader with a question that is an essential as it is unanswered. The poem then leaves the reader to think of the speaker of the poem asking such a question, but also possibly lets the question echo in their mind after the poem is finished. In this poem, death is personified as a woman who is trying to seduce the speaker's lover. This, of course, is quite a reversal of the normal expectations, since soldiers going to war are expected to avoid death, not embrace it. Brooks is isolating a psychological fascination that draws men into the dangerous situations, an attraction to dying that is not often acknowledged, especially not by hard or insensitive people. The very reason this fascination is present is that it is denied. The word coquettish refers to the behavior of somebody who flirts by playing hard to get, someone who acts shy and all the while is in command of the courtship. Death is shown as being attractive exactly because it is forbidden. It is called impudent, which means bold or rude and strange, and it is these qualities that the speaker's lover is unfamiliar with that make her worry that he might end up attracted to death. She identifies an element of beauty about death, a beauty that has been recognized by artists throughout history, especially those who have painted or sculpted the angel of death. But she takes no steps toward identifying exactly what death's beauty might be. After being seduced, the speaker fears that her lover will say yes to death. In this poem, dying in battle is voluntary and does not happen without the victim's consent. This could reflect a concern that the soldier will let his guard down, make a mistake, forget a detail, or in some other way allow himself to die by failing to defend his life in every way possible.